You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear.
You know, Sandi Minds, one of the things I like about the fact that we have a variety of different hosts now, it's not just the Andy and Matt show, which was fine, is that you never know who you're going to get when the opening woman talks about, now your shoe insiders. It used to say Andy and Matt, and now you just don't know. It's like a Cracker Jack box. What's the surprise inside? And so today, the episode's you and me. So I hope you're ready for this, because I think we're going to have a great conversation on today's episode.
I'm really excited to be a co-host today because I always think that I have one of the longest histories in the footwear industry. But today's guest has a tremendous amount of history in footwear companies, and I'm really excited to hear her story. I'm excited to introduce Kristin Burrows, Chief Brand Officer of OrthoLite, to join us today. And Kristin, welcome. We look forward to speaking with you for a short time today. And I'd love to start out by asking you to say hello and share a little bit about your shoe story. And by that, I mean, tell us about how you made your way into the footwear industry. And of course, I remember meeting you about, 20 years ago when you were at Keds. So talk a little bit about your shoe story and say hello to everyone.
Well, first, hello to everyone. But second, are you trying to date me that early in the show here? I'm already 20 plus years.
That means she dated herself too, right? So
you threw both of us under the bus, I guess, at the same time. But yes, I'm lucky to say that I have been in the footwear industry for a few of my lives now. It was the classic case of I graduated from college. In 1991, I tried to avoid getting a quote unquote real job because I had no idea what I was going to do. So I went to grad school, my first grad school at Boston University for a degree in marketing communications. And unfortunately, they right away said, as part of this program, you have to have an internship. And so I was like, well, geez, I was trying to avoid this decision. But I said, look, I've always been an athlete. I was a swimmer and tennis player in high school. Reebok was right in the backyard of BU. And I said, look, why don't I just try to cold call a few people at Reebok and see if I can get an internship there? And I was lucky enough to be brought in as an intern as part of a promotional and PR/marketing internship. And through that ran what was called CORE, one of their initial promotional programs that managed all of their cross-training and aerobic, quote unquote athletes. And with that, got to touch product, got to touch marketing, got to touch, experiences, and fell in love with the industry right away. And so, yes, I guess it's now 25 plus years later. After a short stint in management consulting, I was a management consultant for almost 5 years. I recently came back into the industry in April, and I'm just so thankful. There's really nothing like the passion, fun, work hard, play hard, get things done like the footwear space.
Yeah, I love that, Kristin, because one look at your resume and all the places you've been, ASICS and Fila and GH Bass, right? Keds. You've been at every kind of segment within our industry: athletic, dress, casual, kids. Thousandfelds, as you're now an advisor on that board. What is it about you and your knowledge base that is so attractive to all these footwear companies? Because you got some secret sauce. And so we want you to share that on Shoe and Show so other people know. But kind of what is it about your unique perspective and your experience that is so attractive to folks?
Well, to me, I've always loved more of the front end of the business, although, the back end obviously is so critical. the front end focus on, a relentless dedication to the customer and creating that storytelling with the end consumer. One of the interesting things about this industry is, as I define it, it's both head and heart, right? People make purchasing decisions rationally and emotionally. And I think depending on the product category, it tends to be one or the other on that spectrum. And I think, thankfully, I've had the opportunity as growing up initially as a merchant to really figure out how product stories can become marketing stories and how marketing stories become product stories, and really how to bring that life for the end consumer, and how to match the brand or the product category, back to the white space in the market. So I'd like to say, to me, that the secret sauce, and listen, I had some stumbles along the way, but the secret sauce really is about, as my mom would say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So how do you really listen and capitalize on what you're hearing?
That's awesome. And I've read a lot about what you've been doing recently, specifically in Footwear News, my old digs, about how you can make OrthoLite more of a household name, how you could bring all of the back end knowledge and experience and innovation and performance and comfort and sustainability to the forefront. So that's what you're challenged with now, right? How can you tell that story and make sure that you're not just an insole solution and more of a footwear solution? So I'm sure there's a great amount of opportunities and challenges. So tell us a little bit about, your road ahead and what your vision is and how you're going to help support that to become the reality.
Yeah, great question. So as you know, we've been about sustainability since our founding 25 years ago. Our founder and CEO, Glenn Barrett, made his first insole with reground rubber. So that's always been a core part of who we are. That, along with innovation, along with, lastly, key to us is how can we be a solution to our brand partners? And so when we think of being that ultimate innovative footwear solution, it's really trying to address, our 400 plus brand partners and what they're looking to achieve in terms of their product, their sustainability goals, their innovation goals, et cetera. And so it's working with them to really elevate our role in that and how we can support them.
So let's think about because I always say sustainability, at least right now, is a wild, wild west. There's so many claims being made. We spend a lot of time at FDRA in partnership with OrthoLite and so many other great brands and companies trying to figure out what are the parameters of the Wild West, what should brands be doing, because there is a lot of kind of fluff out there, and we try to be pragmatic, right? So whether it's focus on materials or is focus on, through our shoe waste program, helping factories recycle waste and sell that off for an ROI. Talk to us about, because you're in a similar position, you have this amazing kind of history, as you talked about, Glenn, in the start of the company, but you also are trying to shepherd companies through this process, and they're just getting inundated with the next whiz bang thing that will help them solve all their sustainability problems, which doesn't exist, right? So how do you help companies kind of navigate through that and cut through the crap and make just smart, pragmatic steps on this journey? Let's face it, just now beginning for all of us, whether it's our personal lives or professional lives.
Yeah, it's a great question. What we're doing first is, as I mentioned, we've always been about creating sustainable product, right? And what that means changes and evolves, right? And it should change and evolve as we get better and better at creating certain solutions. As you know, we pre-launched Circle, which is an end-to-end, right? It's a soil-to-soil solution. And we expect when we fully launch it next year with our brand partners, that will go a long way in terms of really creating something that has a true end of life that doesn't end up in a landfill, right? It's not going to be with us forever. So that's the product side. Then we have the process side, which, quite frankly, is fairly new for us. And we really got into assessing and evaluating our process about 3 years ago, leveraging HIG as a third-party certification in terms of how we're doing better. So I know there's some, there's different opinions out there if HIG is the right one or is not the right one. For us, it has been great because it has helped us hold ourselves accountable and at least put a framework together about how we can be better. We are about to add to that module and go beyond process and environment to the people side, so the third part of the ESG stool. And so, I think having that third-party accountability, which are, as you guys know, our brand partners are rightfully so demanding more and more from their T1 and T2 suppliers. So to answer your question, Matt, let's make sure we can be transparent about where we're at in that journey, and always looking for ongoing improvement. So kind of wrapping all of that together, we're currently really at the beginning or about a third of the way through a project with a consulting firm, Shift Advantage, that is well known in the sustainability space, to create our first, and you can call it ESG or CSR report, depending on whichever buzzword you want. So as a part of that, let's be outward and transparent about what is OrthoLite's vision in this space, what are our goals, and what is our roadmap to get there. And we expect to be coming out with that at the beginning of next year. And through that, really taking a leadership role with the brands to say, this is how we see navigating it, and this is how we see navigating it and help you deliver against where you're going.
That's amazing. I think you just touched on one of the key words that we keep talking about, and that's transparency and being authentic, and being a true partner, right? So we talk a lot about the fact that consumers are interested in hearing more. They're turning the corner in terms of, does that influence their buying decisions, right? We're trying to figure out how much it doesn't really matter if you are truly sustainable. So you have both the job to communicate with your partners and to the consumers about, what transparency means, what sustainability means, how authentic you are. And those messages are quite different when you're talking to those two audience, B2B or B2C, right?
Yeah.
I know you have a tremendous amount of momentum in the athletic world. I'm sure your experience helps with that tremendously. Outside of the athletic world, talk to us about opportunities and new categories that you're expanding into, and what's exciting for you, outside of that athletic world that you completely dominate, in my mind.
So we do see a huge opportunity in the brown shoe and luxury space. As you guys know, we're fully vertically integrated, right? We have factories in China, Vietnam, Indonesia, India. And I'm not sure if you know or not, but we do have a factory in Spain that was purposely, quote unquote, put there to support some of the luxury and brown shoe businesses over in Europe. So we see that as a huge opportunity. And if you think, especially on the luxury end, the margins in that business are higher, which we think also lends to being able to support sustainability initiatives, in a easier way, just because there's more margin there, and the consumer tends to have more of a willingness to pay at that end for added sustainability. So that's a big push for us. We see a lot of white space for us in that area.
I think that's a really smart way to tackle it, Kristin, because one of the challenges we find is that consumers are fickle, right? Shocker. They're fickle in the sense that you can poll. We've done polling for a long time on Made in America, for example, and we've started doing more consumer polling on sustainability. And so everyone and their grandmother will say, I want something made in the US, or I want something that's sustainable and has a less impact on the environment. And that starts the conversation with the pollster. And then when it gets down to, okay, it's going to be X, Y, Z more expensive, or it is going to not function, it's not going to have nearly as many kind of functional aspects to it, then the consumer's out. Like, I'm out. And so the fact that you are finding a way to, one, just to continue to do what's right within the company itself, regardless of how the consumer feels about it at any given moment, which can whip in the wind. And then also looking for this opportunity in a higher margin category within our industry to really drive that change, test it out, see what the opportunities are. And then you can democratize that back into kind of the lower cost, more kind of the footwear that's available to everyone, all consumer. And I think that's like the moonshot for all of us, trying to figure out how we move from the higher end to something that is available to everybody, no matter where they shop for their shoes. And that will be the game changer. And so it sounds like you guys are thinking through that critically in a really responsible way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, as a consumer myself, we shouldn't have to sacrifice function. We shouldn't have to sacrifice fashion for sustainability, right? I mean, so I think it's our role as brand/manufacturers to solve that problem. I mean, in a sense, with the introduction of plastics and many of the quote unquote ingredients of shoes, we almost solved the problem to solve back then was very different, and we almost did it too well. Right. So I'm fully confident that given, the brain trust that's in this industry, that we can solve for this new problem.
That's great. We are really excited to have you join us in Portland on September 28th at the Sustainability Summit. You'll be speaking on a panel about recycling and circularity. And I think joining you might be someone from Rothy's and Deckers, and Andy Polk from our team will be moderating that conversation.
Yep.
We're really excited to hear you talk more about some of these solutions and ideas and innovation. So I do want to do a small plug for that summit.
Thank you.
It's becoming really exciting. We have a tremendous amount of companies and innovators joining us on that day in Portland. So
I'm super excited too, and I love how you guys are calling it the No BS Summit, because too often these summits you walk out of there going, we spent the day admiring the problem versus identifying key solutions. And certainly, our goal is that through our panel, we're providing brand partners with solutions.
Yeah, I love that. Admiring the problem. There's so many conferences that do that. And in all honesty, that's kind of the easy thing to do, is like the lamenting part. Oh, this sucks. What are we going to do? But how do we get out of that and really kind of create action? And that's where the pragmatism is so important to me.
Yeah.
Like there's a brand who's actually talked about, we won't kind of mention the name here, who had like a reclaim program to bring in, to have the consumer ship back product to them so they could recycle it. And there's not enough demand there right now. And so it's they've shut down the program. And so for me, it's okay. We can talk about the pie in the sky thing 5 to 10 years from now. I remember 5 years ago, we were talking about everyone's going to be 3D printing shoes at their home on their own 3D printers. And
right.
Here we are 5 years later, right? So I want to be pragmatic. I think Andy, along with you and others, are doing a great job of kind of teeing that up so that there's a pragmatism to it, so that people can walk away and start to implement solutions the next day and not continue to kind of intellectually think about what the potentials are for footwear sustainability. And when we did a survey last year of our workforce, we said, hey, are you guys equipped to meet the needs or the claims that brands are making on the sustainability side? 70% said no. So we said, you know what? We propped up a digital training center that's highly technical, that's on demand for our members, personnel to access. We try to fill in that gap, but we want to lessen that number. And you lessen that number by continue to look beyond like the next few years. But at the same time, like, all right, here's 3 things a year from now. If you accomplish these 3 things, you will have set yourself on a better path. And it sounds like at OrthoLite, with this internal review and the report that's coming out next year, you guys are well on your way to doing that.
Yeah, I think you have to have a starting place, right? What's your baseline today? I'm a big, it's like Kaizen, right? It's that ongoing improvement. So let's keep dreaming for the ultimate solutions, but at the same time, take steps forward to just being better every day and defining what that means.
Yeah, exactly. Just so folks know, if you want to sign up for the program, we have a few weeks left. You can go to shoesustainabilitysummit.com and you can see all about what we'll be talking about in Portland. We're very excited about it. We're getting back to Portland for the first time in a couple of years. It's the hotbed of the athletic industry within footwear. So going there makes a ton of sense. And Kristin, my last question for you, Sandi might have a few more, but my last question for you is, throughout your journey, kind of, what are, like, speaking of 2 or 3 pragmatic things, what are 2 or 3 things as you think about strategizing in this industry that you think our employees should be thinking about as it relates to, and it doesn't have to just be sustainability, but excellence in product, excellence and meeting the customer where they're at? What are a couple things that people can take away from this conversation?
I think a little bit of what I started with, a relentless focus on the consumer, or in my case, given we're B2B now, the customer, right? And I'd say second, I'm a big, what problem are we solving for? So let's take a step back and agree on what we're solving for. And then I would say third, and I try to teach my boys this. I mean, be curious, right? Like, just try to be curious. So I think that would be sort of my third overarching takeaway.
Yeah, curiosity is good, by all means. Well, thank you for joining us on Shoe and Show. We're so thankful that you took the time to kind of talk about your journey, your shoe story, also what's happening at OrthoLite. There's so many exciting things, and your partnership with FDRA. We're super grateful for your thought leadership, for the ways in which you are working with us and collaborating with us, and look forward to seeing you out in Portland.
And I do too. And don't forget the Brews and Shoes. That's also...
This is true. Brews and Shoes that evening in support of Souls for Souls. So come out. You can find all this information at fdra.org or shoesustainabilitysummit.com. And make sure you sign up. And Sandi, thank you for joining me and my partner in crime in this conversation. As always, I appreciate your insights. And the fact you've been in the industry 20 years, as we are aging everybody, you have a lot of insights as well. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you, everyone.
And Shoe and Show is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.